And what I think is interesting is the very first show that I ever wrestled professionally, my manager was Shaggy, and the main event that night was the Sheik versus Bobo Brazil.
Wow.
Now I'm talking about the original Sheik and Bobo Brazil, And when I tell people that, they think, "How, man? Those guys were around in the 70s, in the 80s, And these guys were old this night that they wrestled each other. They were old, and I found it fascinating because the year was 1991, and Bobo Brazil came down to the ring. And he actually was holding himself up on the ropes. Like when he came down to the ring, he had two guys on each arm, and he was playing it off like they were his buddies, but they were holding him up, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the Sheik could get around a little better than Bobo at this time, but the Sheik would come over with the spike, give Bobo one in the chin, and then Bobo would sell for 2 or 3 minutes. they just did this over all night. 2 or 3 minutes later, Sheik would come back, give him another stab, and I loved it. But I was so proud to be on that card with those greats in the main event, you know what I mean? And I still bragging about it now, and I'm 52. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It meant everything to me, man. And so yeah, that was the main event that night. And in that locker room is where we met the only 3 other young guys. The only 3 other young guys in that locker room was Sabu, Rob Van Dam, and Rob Van Dam's partner in a team called the U.S. Express. His partner's name was Dango. And those were the only young guys. Now, when I tell you this, I'm not saying that I was a 19-year-old kid looking at 25-year-olds considering them old. You know what I mean? No. Right. Everybody in that locker room was old. Big, fat beer guts. Gray beards. It was like a fucking fraternity back then. You couldn't just get into wrestling. There was no young people like it is today. It was like a secret society almost, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they treated us like shit because we were young, you know what I mean? And the whole locker room was mean to us, for many years. That's why Shaggy hated it so much too. He hated the way that the other wrestlers treated us in the dressing room. Are you guys still rapping, laughing and shit? And, I just look at that now and I think, man, when I see a locker room today, it's so much youth in there, And when I first broke in, it was all old timers. Maybe it was just the promotion I was at or whatever, but most of our travels back then, it was us and Rob Van Dam, and Sabu didn't catch it as much. Because, well, number one, he was a few years older than us, but number 2, he was the Sheik's nephew, so he got that pass, But the rest of us young guys used to get tore up in the dressing room by the old timers, just us, you know what I mean? But it's just such a different world now. It seems like wrestling from when we broke in.